Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Have you ever wondered if grief could become the catalyst for creativity, connection, and even joy? Today's guest has lived that question and answered it through dance, writing, and decades of deep personal professional work. Dr. Sheila K is with us today. She's a grief consultant, international speaker, and the author of The Art of Grieving, How the Arts and Art Making Help Us Grieve and Live Our Best Lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. So whether you are a consultant, a speaker, a therapist, a creative thought leader, or somebody just looking to write a book, you're in the right place, because for today's conversation will show you how grief can be reimagined and how writing can open doors to unexpected healing and impact. Stay tuned as we welcome Sheila to the Authors on Mission podcast. Welcome, Sheila.
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Danielle, for having me.
Of course. I'm very excited to dive in. I think the topics that you write about are, of course, very, deep, profound, saddening, but also something that we can all relate to from one level or another. So it's something that no matter what walk of life you are in right now, to our listeners, you're going to be able to find something insightful from this conversation. So thanks again for joining us. I'm looking forward to diving in.
Great. Yes.
Yeah. So, first question, I gave a little bit of background to who you were in that introduction, but I always like to start the podcast with tell me a little bit who you are and what led you to writing your book.
Okay. Well, the book I'm talking about today is my fourth book. So I've been doing this quite a while, but I have to say that my first profession was as a professional dancer. So it's going from that to writing, and in fact, is a little tricky. That notion we know things, but we don't have the words for it.
Right.
So writing is really about finding the words so we can connect with people and be understood. So that was quite a leap at times, I have to say. And I started, I think, probably by just journaling, just writing stuff, kind of like some people do it by just having a conversation. In the conversation, it comes out what you really believe about something. And I had a friend who used to say, I never know what I think until I hear myself say it out loud. So it is a discovery process, the writing and the speaking. Even being on a podcast and talking about is very much a discovery process.
Yeah, I get that. And, I think from all the different experiences that you've gone through in your life, especially from what I've learned about you preparing for this podcast, I can see how a lot of it is about that discovery. For example, you mentioned in your book about attending the AIDS Medicine and Miracles conference, and that really did impact you in that experience. So I can see how that might have been one element of what pushed you towards writing, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that particular experience, the background on that is that my son was diagnosed with AIDS at a time when AIDS was a death sentence. So there wasn't much medicine. We were looking for miracles because there wasn't a lot of medicine. And so when we went to this conference, and here were these people taking words from the audience and then performing them for us. That was so profound, I can't tell you, because remember at that time people didn't even speak the word out loud. I mean, it was such a verboten topic, and what that taught me was that the arts can transform something for us on our behalf. It's
Right.
not that we have to do it all. So when you see a play, and here is this character going through what you've gone through, you go through it with them, right? And hopefully they get to the other side. So you have that sort of sense of there is a way through this.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that. And I can also see how, it helps you connect with others too, especially just this artistic expression, be it in the form of dance or be it in the form of writing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I saw that when I was looking through all the materials is that you talk about how this is really a way to access the framework to our emotions. It creates the distance we need to discover meaning. So would you mind speaking a little bit how this form of art and writing, of course, creates productive distance from grief? And this could be something I think that anybody can relate to, of course.
Well, first of all, I think we have misunderstandings about what grief really is. So, and I, as a social worker and a therapist and a teacher, had my own misunderstandings. Believe me, in Western culture, we are taught some things. We are taught some things that are actually not so. So we have to get rid of what we know that's not so. And one of those things is like that this is a fast thing you can get over quickly. And in fact, move on. That's not what happens. That's not even the way it functions in our brains.
Mm.
So there's a lot of research now that's very exciting about how we do process our lives. How when we have experiences, there's something that has to happen for us to get better understanding of it and to get a better understanding of who we are. So when we lose someone, and that's important, but it can be even we lose a job that was important, something that was life-changing that we lose, then we are going to need to process that. And that's what grief is. We need to process it so we get to the place where we have some kind of, well, that's where my image of, I have the image of the spiral. Grief is not stair steps we climb. Climb, here's anger, here's these different feelings and depression, and I get to the top, and then I just, dust my hands off and say, okay, got that. It's not. It's a spiral. You have an experience in the initial part. It can be very painful. It can be very difficult. And then it starts to ease a bit as you go into your life. As you go on with your life. But there will be the anniversaries of that. There will be the reminders of it will come around. But now you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more distance from it. And then you have another way that you might see it. It reveals itself to you.
Yeah, definitely. And, I can see how this is actually one of the many questions that, the Art of Grieving explores. That I'm happy that kind of transitions right into that, actually. And that's one of the key questions that your book talks about, and all those harmful misconceptions in our society about grief. Because you're right. A lot of us think, 2 days off from work and then, all right, get back to it. So
well, and that's part of how, our jobs and the notion that, 2 days from work and you're going to be done. Really, this is so unrealistic.
Yeah, definitely. And, I can see how your book also offers tips for that. I'm wondering if maybe you can give us a little sneak peek about, maybe one insight that the book offers in that regard.
Well, I think that, first of all, I've noticed something, and this, your listeners might have this experience too. People often don't know what to say. When somebody has had a difficult loss, they don't know what to say, and so maybe they don't say anything, or there's this awkwardness, which leaves the person feeling very alone. And so one of the things I like to encourage people about is you don't have to say. It's not words. It's not words that this person wants. They just want to know that you care. So it could be any message that you can send, that you care. So there's a story in the book about my granddaughter, who I think was 9 years old at the time, and I'm online with her, and she ends up teaching me a wonderful lesson. And so she's making a bracelet for her friend. And the reason is because her friend's hamster had died the day before. And she wants her to, what she wants her to know is that I care about you and I understand. She doesn't say that. She makes the bracelet and she gives it to her. So that's what I mean when I say the communication is, I care and I want to be here for you. So what we want is people that will be companioning us. They will, and they will be with us, so we don't feel alone.
Right, understood. And I can see how even like the bracelet example you just said, like small things like that really just do go a long way. And, one thing I also did notice in your book too, especially is the idea of giving yourself a homework assignment, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just talking about in a way. You mentioned, what if we practiced grieving and eventually got good at it, right? So, what surprised you about these kind of answers? And perhaps you give a little bit of context to our listeners too.
Yeah. Well, I think that notion of the homework assignment. So I wrote the book Warrior Mother,
Mhm.
Fierce Love, Unbearable Loss, and the Rituals That Heal. And it was about the journey with my son through his experience with AIDS. He lived with it for 4 years, as did we, because these things happen not just to one person. They happen to everybody that is connected to them. So that was a 4 year journey. I had a 2.5 or 3 year journey with my daughter with breast cancer. And so you go through these, experiences, and then there's they're packed with a lot of learnings, I guess you could say, a lot of things that nobody tells you. So that was what really motivated me to start writing about it, and also about becoming a better writer. So what my homework assignment I gave myself was, what if you just looked at everything that's happening and just ask the question, is this related to grief? Like, we think of it, someone dies, of course, that's related to grief, but there's so many things that can happen that are related to grief and loss. And so it was like a writing practice, and I would write about whatever was happening. I mean, okay, we had a big storm and the tree fell down and, hurt somebody's house, well, that's a loss. And of course, the process of doing that, I got to become a better writer, for sure. When you dedicate yourself to, really doing that. And so I began to explore the fact that loss is common. It's everywhere, no matter how old you are. I presented at a college campus one time, and I learned a tremendous amount from these young people because there wasn't anybody there. I sort of did a survey with the audience, how many people here know somebody that's going through cancer? Well, I mean, all the hands are going up, right? How many people know somebody who had a loss related to an accident, a car accident? Well, there's quite a number of those people. And at that time, also a lot of drugs and people dying of drug overdoses. And that's starting to come down now. But at that time, I mean, there wasn't anybody in that auditorium that didn't know somebody or some family that was dealing with that.
Yeah, I could see that. And it really is more common than you would think in that regard, right? Like you look around and you never know who could be struggling with what.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that being said, you did mention your other book, Warrior Mother, and I do like that you use that as a comparison because I can see how that book is more of a memoir about personal losses, whereas The Art of Grieving is instructional.
But they are connected because when The Warrior Mother came out, there were many people that, what part of what I did, I performed the book, I called it. So, when you have a book, authors will often read something from their book, and then people will talk to them about it or ask them questions. And so rather than do that, because I'm a performer and a dancer, I performed the book, and I would read something from the book, but then I had a group of people who would respond with their stories of what that made them think of. So if I was talking about having a teenage daughter, they might say either they remember when they were a teenage daughter, or maybe they have a teenage daughter. So anyway, it was very fun kind of thing that we did. And people that came just loved it. And I mean, I did it all over the country. I did it at the festival in Edinburgh, the Fringe Festival. We did this at a book festival, the Fringe Festival. Anyway, it was really great. But what I started to notice was people were really nervous about even inviting somebody to come whom they knew had some recent loss. Like, well, I don't know if she's ready for this. So this kind of I think almost over cautiousness. And maybe the person isn't ready, but I'm thinking, well, why didn't you just ask them, if they would like to come? So I began to see how afraid we are of even the topic. So that's what got me into the art of grieving, to start looking at, wait a minute, this is something we got to get good at. I mean, I'm an old person, and I'm happy that I'm still here. And if you're going to still be around, you're going to have more losses, right? More people. A lot of my siblings are now gone, and so what is the lesson for that, and what is the richness that I can be grateful for in my life? Because that's the gift that eventually happens. You get to the place where you recognize how grateful you are that you had that person in your life, that you had someone that you loved to that extent.
Right, exactly. And, this is, some really powerful stuff. Again, I think a lot of us can relate to this in other, like, so many different ways and regards. So I appreciate you for, speaking on that and showing us everything related to that. However, I do want to kind of segue a little bit into the writing process here, because you've written many different books, and I'm sure that, the process from Warrior Mother to The Art of Grieving must be just completely different in terms of how you got the words onto the page, especially being that one was more instructional too. Can you talk a little bit about your writing process and any type of strategy you might have used?
Well, first of all, going back to the very first book, I want to tell you, it takes a village to write a book. I mean, you may not know that in the beginning, but to write and get it out there, and I mean, it is not, there's a lot of hours you spend by yourself, yes. But if it's going to be a book, and then even after it is a book, your job as an author is to make sure the book gets out there and people learn about it, which is why I'm talking to you today, Danielle, because I mean, you have something you want to, that you have as a gift to the world. You want it to land in the place of where people really need and want the information, Yeah, so I would say the process itself is really daunting, I would say. In fact, I often say to people, well, start small. Maybe a booklet would be good, not a whole book. I think if I had it to do over again, I think I would. And people are kind of short attention span now anyway, so maybe a little booklet would be good before you get into a whole book. And of course, now there's so many different ways for people to read books, like on their phones. My audiobook is about to come out. Some people, that's the only way that they're not gonna read a book. They are done with that. They're gonna listen to the book. So as an author, you often have to do different forms of the book. The audiobook, the paperback book that you hold in your hand, which some people are still dedicated to, and then also the online version. And the online version of this recent book was really fun, because you can now create in an online book color photographs, color images, which in a print book you could never afford. The cover is print, is pretty, but you can't have a lot of colored. It's just the printing would be way too expensive. And so it was really fun to find pictures that went with what I was talking about and to be involved. That was another. And I think I would say this: your generation is more visual. It is, you got to have when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, it's true. It really is. Yeah. So that's the other thing about the arts. See, the visual experience is a different part of the brain. There's another book. This is kind of funny that I'm promoting someone else's book, but I want you to know about another book it's called Your Brain on Art, and how the arts transform us. And this is the most exciting thing for me, because I've known this, and many people have known this for a long time. But this book is from Johns Hopkins University. It is the science that tells us why and how the arts are transforming our brains. It's medicine. So my book has a chapter on music, and I learned more about, we are vibratory beings. So when we hear music, it's moving our bodies and our brains. And so that if you're feeling down and, you can give yourself a playlist that lifts you up, right? It doesn't solve the world's problems, but it helps you be better able to deal with them. So I'm very excited about this. It's just come out, and so I said I'm always telling people about it because it really supports what I'm writing about, and what I'm trying to convince other people of,
Definitely, and it's always good to support other artists as well, especially if it's something in your ballpark too.
Well, that's it, and
what
that's
goes around comes around.
a community of authors and artists. So I have to say, when I wrote Warrior Mother, I was in a writer's group. And boy, that was, I would never have been able to do that book without that group. And so we met, I can't remember, every couple of weeks, I guess. And you get this feedback from other people. And they would say things to me like, well, I don't think that the feeling is not really coming through here. I'm not getting it. Or they would say, okay, now this part really is hitting me. I'm really getting it. So you get this wonderful information. It's just so invaluable. And you can give that to other people as well. So yeah, so I when I did the opening for that book, I invited those people, and I had them stand up and get applause because that was so much a part of that book and what really, how it really turned out.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I want to kind of segue back to what we were just talking about.
Okay, sure.
You did mention you started doing an audiobook too. I wonder if you'd like to share a little bit about that. That sounds like a really exciting endeavor. Is that your most recent project you've been working on?
Well, yeah, this is about what I'm excited about is the voice. Our voices are one of the most expressive things about us. And so a lot of times people can, well, you probably have this experience. Oh, I'm fine. You don't believe that, right? You don't believe that. So I did a one for Warrior Mother as well, but the audio process. In fact, I've moved my writing to the platform, the Substack platform, and there's a lot of really wonderful writers on that platform. But one of the things you can do is when I write a blog, I can also record it, and so it feels to me like, as a writer, then when I say it, I don't know, it has a different energy. It has a different feel for me as a writer. And I hope, and I think it does also for people that are, rather than reading the text, they're hearing it. They're listening to it.
Right, definitely. And it's also a matter of, time, of course. More people are more inclined to hear that too. But I can see
that's true, because you can be driving, you can be washing your dishes.
Yes.
It's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also a message that comes through that is, you've heard the expression probably, well, somebody has to find their voice. In fact, we say that about writers. You have to find your voice. And that's a metaphorical kind of thing in a way, but it's more than metaphorical, I think. It's really more than metaphorical. So I would say this, for me as a writer, when I read, and I do, you can hire people to read your work, and they recommend people, if it's a story, if it's not you, it's your characters, maybe it's better to have an actress or an actor do it, because they can, they have the skills to really bring it alive. But if it's your story, then they recommend that you do it. And I think that was a big challenge with Warrior Mother. But now I feel like I'm more confident about it, and doing it, I know that I just feel it's very satisfying in my body. And of course, I'm a dancer, so I'm always seeing how this feels. How does this feel? Dance is about the body, and our memories and our feelings are in our bodies. So,
Definitely. Thank you for that. And I do like how you keep relating it back to the dancing world. It's a huge part of you. And, it's great to know that you're still, relating it back. And it's such a huge part of your life. And that being said, I'm wondering, if anybody is interested in finding these books, reading, listening to the audiobooks. For example, I see you have the poster right behind you. Everybody looking right now. It's a beautiful, beautiful cover.
Right.
Before I actually finish my first question, how did you come up with that design? Did you design it yourself?
No, I had a wonderful young woman here in Pittsburgh who designed that. And what she did, she looked at the covers of my other books, and she did something that it just brings together so much of what I have written about in the past and what's in this volume. And it's that spiral. It's just, it draws you in.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think it's beautiful, and it's very eye-catching. They say, don't judge a book by its cover, but it's something that I think anybody on the shelves would,
Oh no, that is as far as the marketing, as far as selling books, the covers are very, very important. And, they give awards for covers because that really matters.
It does.
It draws people to it, attracts people, or it doesn't,
Right.
It doesn't sell it.
Well, that being said, kind of circling back to my original question, I was going to ask, if anybody did want to find this book, learn more about it, reach out to you, stay in connection with you, how can they do that?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways. One is I have a website, and my website is my name, Sheila K. Collins, SheilakCollins. .com. So that's pretty simple. And I do have things like I had a TED Talk that I think my TED Talk is on there. There's some visual things that you could see. Some videos are on there. And my books are available, on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Barnes & Noble or independent bookstores have them. And then you can sign up for just being on my list. And as I'm doing things around the country, I am doing events. And, you can stay up with what's coming out of all of this. What's coming up for me in the future, I think, is to do some retreats where people really have the opportunity. I'm looking at an art center in Pennsylvania that has places where you can make art, make jewelry, and that we could have a project where you work on making something, perhaps something as a memento for someone that you have lost. And at the same time that we're looking at going through the wisdom of what is the art of grieving and how can we get better at it.
I love that. I love that. So everybody, today you can check out those links in the description box of this podcast. We're going to have it right there for you to click on when we're all finished up, but don't quite click on them just yet because Sheila, I want to give you an opportunity if you have any other bits of wisdom, pieces of advice for anybody listening today, be it in the writing world or, grieving in general, anything else they could kind of take home with them, maybe another homework assignment, something like that. What do you think?
Well, yes, I have one thing I think that might be helpful. As you say that, Danielle, as you put me on the spot a little bit.
Oh yeah, well I know it's always a pressure.
No. I want to say, so one of the things the encouragement I want to give people. So people would say to me, well, you're an expert on grief. No, no, I'm not an expert. We all have very different experiences with loss, but I call myself a grief advocate. And I really am advocating for welcoming at some level. It sounds counterintuitive, at some level to welcome the loss that we cannot change. I mean, if you can't change it, if you can't change it, you have to learn how to say yes to it. You have to learn how to get the wisdom. What is this message? One of the things in the book is asking the question, to what life is this loss leading me? So you broke up with the guy you thought was going to be the one.
Right.
So, okay. And it's awful. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but to what life is this loss calling me? And so, staying open to listen to that. Listen to yourself, listen to what's being presented to you. And there will be a day when you will say, oh boy, I'm glad I didn't go down that road. I have this about a job. I mean, I didn't get tenure when I had worked so hard for it. And when
Really? But in teaching, tenure in teaching then?
yeah,
Wow,
it takes 6 or 7 years to get to the point where you have
yeah.
a full-time thing. And I had an 8-1 vote in my favor,
Mhm.
but I didn't get it. And I was devastated. And now when I look back on it and I think, oh, that was really good. I didn't, because I've had such a more adventurous life than if I had still been stuck, in that role as a teacher, which I love teaching, but I can see some value in how it worked out, because, we have plans, but plans don't always work out. And there's a lot of things that could come in between the plan and, its execution and how it's going to be. So that's my message to young people, really, is that the grief has wisdom in it. There's something you can learn that will actually make you a stronger person and a wiser person and a more mature person.
I love that. And there's nothing better you could say, and for anyone to resonate with right now. Thank you for sharing that. I like how you applied it to all walks of life too. Grief doesn't just involve death necessarily, but the end of an era, expectations that you never, would have thought would fall through, everything that you just described. So thank you for that. It's very eye-opening to hear.
It is.
Yeah. Well, that being said, everybody, this has been a really profound conversation today. Sheila, I can only thank you so much for this. I think, again, everyone's going to benefit from this, from the writing process to the art of grieving to everything in between. So thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Well, thank you for doing your work too. This is very wonderful to get these things out to people, right?
100%. Yeah. And, no matter where you are right now listening, people know that there's always somebody on your side. There's always a way to, get through whatever you must be struggling with. And people like Sheila have frameworks out there to help you, or even just books to read and get comfortable with and to learn from. So yeah, be sure to check out those links. That's all I can say. Check out those links to everybody listening today.
All right.
Yeah. And again, everybody, remember that Authors on Mission is dedicated to empowering you with the knowledge and the confidence to become experts in your own domains, whether you're navigating grief, pursuing creative expression, working on your own book. I hope today's episode has inspired you to take that next step. So again, check out those links. And until next time, this is Danielle reminding you to stay curious, keep creating, keep writing, and continue your mission with purpose. Have a great day, everybody.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.